Who's your starting 11 with this national team right now?
Yeah, wow.
No, and I'm not talking about who's healthy. I'm talking about you have all players available, including Matthew Hoppe and other guys. Who's your 11?
Yeah. Matthew Hoppe's a great ad. And Daryl Dike, when he's on fire, you're like, how can we not play this guy? So that's an interesting one, especially as a contrast to Ricardo Pepi in some capacity. I don't know. Let's talk it out. Everybody watching, let's talk it out. Anybody listening, get that list ready and hit us up on social media with what you think your best 11 is right now. I'd say Turner. I'd say let's play back four. Anthony Robinson. I'll go Mark McKenzie and Miles Robinson. Pretty disappointed, honestly, in John Anthony Brooks. I'd say at this point, if everybody's healthy, I would go Dest. Though I'm kind of saying that with a question mark.
But it's insane to me. We're talking about benching literally one of the best 3 center backs in the Bundesliga.
I get it.
I fully agree with you, by the way. I fully agree.
So let's. I still got a question mark around Dest because he is a defensive liability at times because that's not his instincts. Yedlin doesn't necessarily have the great instincts there too. So I feel like the right back position is still pretty wide open. I'm curious at what everybody's thoughts are about right back. Tyler Adams in the 6 for me. If you wanted to play double pivot based on the opposition, you could go with Acosta. Leggett obviously continues. Every time you think, Leggett's not the guy, because he was pretty quiet against Canada, let's be honest. He does have something. He has this ability to make a difference. And
You starting him though?
I don't know if I'd start him at this point. I'm trying to work through. So 4 in my 5, so 6 is Tyler Adams. I actually don't. Acosta doesn't light it up for me as the 8. He was another one that was pretty quiet against Canada. I like him better as a 6 as well. Yeah, that's really tough. That kind of interchange there with those players. But I like Tyler Adams at the same. I'm curious about yours.
Before you continue up top, my problem with those guys is they're great energy guys. Again, they become redundant after a while because they're both going to put out a fire. Right? They're both going to chase. They're going to both track back. They're going to both press. They're going to both do those things. They're going to overcommit at times. That sort of stuff. But the one thing I can say about James Sands, and he's not my starter, but he at least wanted the ball in tight spots.
Yes.
He at least wanted the ball in pockets.
Yeah.
He at least wanted to connect the game and be triangulated with players around him. And maybe it was just because of the spacing. Maybe it was just because of the opponent. But there's something about that's always seemingly missing with this team in the build-up play that we can't seem to break through those guys, through Tyler Adams, through Acosta, through Leggett, through who's another one that's played in there. We can't break through anybody with passing. So if we want to be a passing team, why is it that we constantly roll out a team with a double pivot, both of which are more effective in transition play or more effective in other ways than in our buildup? We don't have somebody that's like, Gringo Torres, who's super comfortable on the ball, come and get it, slow the game down and be rhythmic and take a few chances. I'll tell you who does. Panama does. Honduras does. Costa Rica does.
Right.
All of these teams have players that want to come in, get the ball, ding, 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 out the other side, and now you've broken press. They draw you in, they spread you out, and now you're chasing 40 yards to have to get behind the ball again. We don't have that. We don't have that in this team, and so either it's a system we've got to just leave behind and not think about anymore, and be able to start winning those second balls higher up the field and doing other things. But I just always worry about our willingness to want to beat teams and break teams down, especially as they sit back, and our comfort on the ball in those situations.
Okay, so because it's been proven, and we've seen it in the first 2 games of this window, that we do struggle with teams that sit back, I don't know if we need Adams and Acosta on the field at the same time, because to your point, they kind of replicate each other. And I think that's a place where we could use an 8 that's a little bit more box-to-box. Weston McKennie could potentially fill that spot, assuming all things considered, everybody, gets happy, joy about him being back and apologies are accepted and all that good stuff. I do want to give a shout out to Maldonado, who said, what do we just forget about Reggie Cannon and Shaq Moore are obviously options at the right back position as well, who Shaq Moore did have a very good Gold Cup when he got his minutes. Reggie Cannon, obviously plenty of experience. So yes, those are 2 options as well. But with regard to Adams and Acosta, it just depends on the opponent. If maybe against Mexico, it would make sense to play those 2, that double pivot, protecting that back 4. But then if we know a team's going to sit back, then I honestly would prefer to have just Adams or Acosta. And then you have somebody else, a Weston McKennie, you have a Leggett. You have these guys that are a little bit more of the glue that can help you transition, or a Sands, to your point, right? We need somebody else in there that's a little bit more of a contrast between Acosta and Adams, who do have similar characteristics. And then with the front 3, Aronson is like moved in, dude. I was already on board. I was already on board, but there's something about him. Now, that said, I do want to say that I kind of like him coming off the bench as well, because if I was on the other team and I'm having to deal with a Pulisic who's very good on the dribble, right? And you're like, God damn it, I got to chase this guy around. And Gio Reyna, who's very good at finding those half spaces and killing you with that little pass. It's kind of in those little pockets. And especially if you have a striker that's looking for those. And then all of a sudden you're a little bit tired, 65th minute, 70th minute, and they bring on this little firecracker named Brendan Aronson, who's not going to stop running for the next 20 minutes. I kind of see his role moving forward with this particular group of players, maybe at least through this World Cup, as our super sub off the bench. I really kind of see him in that role. And then if everybody's healthy, then you have the Pulisic, you have the McKennie underneath, you have the Reyna. And then I think at this point, I still think number 9's wide open. I want to see more of Ricardo Pepi, so I'd continue to roll with him. And honestly, my second choice, Daryl Dike is out here making people look stupid for Orlando City. When he's on fire, that guy's unreal. So there's going to be a nice fight for the number 9 spot. And I'm happy that we have that, because for a long time, it was just Josie Altidore. And then who else? We didn't really have anybody really pushing him to compete in that space. So I think that's wide open. But to get to a hard, concrete answer, I think I'd want to see Pepi against Jamaica, to be honest.
Yeah. And the thing I like most about Pepi is he's 18. He's 18. Yeah. I think you didn't see an 18-year-old on the field tonight, and you saw a international quality number 9 on the field tonight, and he's 18.
Right.
Like, he is just in the early phases of being a professional soccer player, and that's only going to improve. Let's not forget, he was competing. He didn't start the first 7 games of the season for FC Dallas.
Yeah,
I think it was the first 7 games. You got Frank Yara there, who's a DP that's playing over him naturally. And this guy literally was just knocking on the door over and over and over again, being like, dude, I'm 18, whatever. This guy's starting over me. This guy makes millions of dollars. It doesn't matter. Put me on the field. I score goals. And he does that. And he did it and he's doing it time and time again. And then you put him on the stage in the same way that we've tried other young players that were young, like Conrad de la Fuente, who looked out of place in his first game. Other guys, Brendan Aronson, didn't look super. I think his first game was against one of the weaker opponents, but didn't look super comfortable in his first big test. I think that may have been against like Switzerland or something like that. And then you see a Ricardo Pepi and you go, well, he kind of fits in well. And he's an addition. He's a different dynamic, and he helps right away. And so I look at him, and my biggest question in that 11, by the way, is, do we go with a Adams, McKennie, and
Yunus Musa
Reyna
was thrown out there, which I like the Yunus Musa shot a lot.
See, this is where we're starting to talk about some serious depth. Now, our depth got tested in this camp. We had 26 players, and the complaints started to go crazy as soon as we rolled out James Sands and Kellen Acosta's getting more games, and we're putting Sebastian Lletget in. But like, you're talking about a pretty big pool of players, and in 12 months from now, an even bigger pool of players. And so, Yunus Musa, I think, depending on how he comes back and how he plays this year at his club level, because he's another player. I think he's like 19 years old or something like that, like maybe 18 still. He's one that again, you could see that he has so much potential to rise, but can he be impactful at the national team level? And then that leaves me with that 10 spot. I would love to see Gio Reyna start on the right side, and then that sort of 50th minute or 60th minute, if it's not going great, if it's not humming, you move him inside to the 10. You bring in Brendan Aronson. Perhaps you take out another one of your midfielders, and now you've got Pepi up there. I want to see Pepi for a sample size. That's the other thing I wanted to say.
Right.
Give him a sample size.
You got to give him a couple games.
Dale DK got a sample size. Everyone's getting a sample size. Matthew Hoppe got a sample size, and it's
another one too
to being a good addition.
Yeah.
But if you think about Brendan Aronson off the bench, Matthew Hoppe coming off of the bench for this team in terms of that energy, you look at it the way that I look at Canada when they put on Tajon Buchanan, except I think even better than Tajon Buchanan and Jonathan David is the potential of the way this team can impact the U.S. off the bench with that type of energy, where it's like Brendan Aronson, a little bit more combination play, but it just keeps you guessing all the time, super intelligent. And then on the other side of Matthew Hoppe, who's going to get, like, we've talked about, they invented the corner flag for this guy. So he knows when to put his head up, because he's going to put his head down and run until he sees the corner flag. He's going to run at you over and over and over again. If he can learn to mix that up, will make him even more dangerous. But I think I'm just so excited about all of these pieces.
And I'm glad everybody's chiming in with different names, because I think our brains are on melt. Because
Joe Scally, I forgot about that.
Joe Scally is another one that
he could be right back. He plays the left back. Was Gladbach's player of the month this month as a left back.
It's crazy the amount of depth we have.